On this episode, we ponder the unique foibles of the Bangkok condo market.
So if you've ever wondered why Bangkok condo prices seem to defy gravity despite the oversaturated market, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krab, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who just returned from Canada with a suitcase full of cheap cereal, maple syrup, and a bunch of winter clothes that I hopefully won't have to use for a very long time.
I hope not.
Yeah.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract over 25 years ago. Fell in love with answering the question, got any advice for a few days in Bangkok for the 10,000th time. So I never left.
The one I love is, do you know any good hotels in Bangkok? Like, no,
I don't. I was just talking to a guy who got here a couple months ago. He's been working on a film project down south. So he's brand new to Bangkok. So I met him on his second day in Bangkok, and he didn't know anything about me. Didn't know that I do the podcast, and he just said like, "Hey, do you have any advice for a few days in Bangkok?" And I'm like, "How much time do you have?"
Yeah, no doubt. I still wish I remembered to make great use of the website lmgtfy.com. You know that one?
That's right.
let me Google that for you.
It's
and
great.
Basically you send someone a link and it opens up a Google page where it shows the mouse moving to the search field and typing in the question for them, and that's all it is.
That's great. Well, obviously this guy wanted some inside things, so I didn't have time to, go in depth, but my short answer was explore the area around Khao San, but not Khao San Road. Check out Sukhumvit nightlife, and then go to Talat Noi and walk around.
Okay, similar to mine, I would say download my walking tour app and do some walking tours.
Sure.
Pay me a few bucks. Listen to the Bangkok Podcast, go through those back episodes and pick a couple of interesting ones.
Well, dude, he didn't have time for that. I mean, I did tell him about the podcast eventually, but it was like 9 p.m. and the next morning he's going to wake up. He wanted to know what he should do.
Sounds like he just didn't want to do the work.
All right. We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind the scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about Greg's recent trip to Canada, where he actually found something that annoyed him about his fellow countrymen, the recent Songkran celebrations in Thailand, and why the ongoing war in the Middle East played a role in making them particularly rowdy, and discussions about an old photo of myself that Greg took in 2008 on Sukhumvit Road, which shows a baby elephant behind me, and what that says about how much the city has developed in the ensuing years. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 800 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
True dat. And as always, if you have a comment, a show idea, or just want to say hi to us, head to bangkokpodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right. Leave us a voicemail and we'll play that on the show. Okay, on this episode, we are going to once again jump into a topic that we fully admit we are not experts in, but is one that comes up a lot in any Bangkok discussion forum, which is the price of condos in Bangkok. Now we, and when I say we, I mean Ed, has done a ton of reading about this lately because I've, of course, just got back from vacation, and I am a condo owner myself, so we are going to discuss the issue a little bit, what the latest gossip says about the condo space, and discuss why you hear so many people advise against buying condos in Bangkok, as well as stats saying that there is a huge oversupply of condos, yet prices haven't really seemed to drop all that much. Now, Ed, like I said, you and I are not experts on this, but it is something that is very interesting, and even more so because it seems that the only really consistent thing about the condo prices in Bangkok is that no one can really figure out how to predict anything with any certainty about it. Like it's a weird black hole of information.
That's right. In fact, I came up with the idea for this show, and it basically was because I kept seeing YouTube videos with a title that said, why you should not buy a condo in Bangkok. And I kept seeing them, over the last few months. And I'm like, what is going on? So I did a deep dive. I think you could basically characterize me as a weekend expert. So okay. I basically have listened to about 10 videos, and then I had a long conversation with AI about the topic. So I'm definitely not a true expert. I'm kind of at that stage where my mind is filled with 20 different ideas, because just all of the videos were fascinating. And there was overlap. There's certain consistent things, which I'll mention. But then once I got into the AI was bringing up stuff that I hadn't thought of. So listeners out there, consider this show kind of food for thought. You're going to hear Greg and I really, us like throwing the ideas around and seeing if we can make sense out of it. But
right. And before we start, really, I do want to say, like, probably a lot of people listening now are like, why are these guys talking about this if they're not experts? Why don't they just get an expert on the show to talk about it? My response to that is we would love to. And for years, we've been looking and reading and trying to find people to come on the show to talk about this.
That's right.
But almost every person I've talked to would have an agenda or an angle or
some kind of bias.
And that's not bad. Like, if we want to get a real estate person on the show, they're not going to come on and say, don't buy anything, obviously. Right. And I get it. That's not a criticism. It's just, it's really hard to find someone who's completely neutral, yet knows a lot about the market.
That's right. Well, from watching all these videos and wrestling with AI, it seems to be a mystery. There might not be any experts like this. Basically, the lesson I've learned is that the Bangkok condo market is voodoo, man. It's no one, no one can figure it out. So let's just start with the basics. The basic issue is that no one disputes this. There's a massive oversupply of condos in Bangkok, and they keep building more.
Right, that's all I hear. Yeah.
So basically, there's a lot of unsold units, and there's a lot of sold units that are unoccupied. So those two things work together. And but if you look at the prices of condos, they actually tend to go up, not rapidly. It's not. They tend to not double in price every year, but they do tend to appreciate, even though we have this massive oversupply. And so from an owner standpoint, like this is not necessarily a bad thing. Like the prices seem to keep going up, which is good, except, but so from a buyer standpoint, it's bad because you're looking at this oversupply and you're thinking, okay, you keep thinking, okay, the bubble's going to burst. The price should be half of what it is, but then the prices never come down. Right. Now, and then from the owner standpoint, you might say, okay, this is really a good thing, but it's not really a good thing because part of the problem is that most new buyers in Thailand, especially Thai people, want to buy new condos. So the prices that are like climbing, they're for similar units in new buildings. Or it might be a listed value. Like you might look up the supposed value of your condo, Greg, and I don't want to get into your personal finances, but the problem is that doesn't necessarily mean you will be able to sell it for that amount.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Right. And the issue, so this raises, kind of fascinating economics questions where let's say you bought a condo for 6 million baht and the prices of similar condos have appreciated. So you look online and it says your condo should be worth 8. So you feel that it has appreciated, but obviously you haven't sold it yet. So
sure.
So it creates, it's like a Schrodinger's cat problem. Like, is my condo is my condo worth 6 million because that's what I paid for it, but is it worth 8? Like you don't actually know if it's worth 8 until you sell it and get 8 million baht in your hands.
Schrodinger's condo. I love it.
It is Schrodinger's condo. And so what the data shows is that once you're an owner, it's very hard to sell, especially if you're a foreigner. And so this is, now you're in a unique situation. And again, we don't have to get into your personal thing. If your condo is in your wife's name or a Thai person's name, you might be better off. One of the problems, as most people know already, is that under Thai law, foreigners cannot own land at all. And we can only own condos in a building that is 51% owned or occupied by Thai people. So a lot of foreigners, if you want to own yourself, you can. A lot of foreigners are concerned about putting a condo in a girlfriend or wife's name, although many guys do it. So they want to put it in their own name. So that means you have to do it under the foreign quota. And it turns out that for complicated reasons, those foreigner quota condos tend to be more expensive, which means it's harder to sell those to Thai people, which means you end up having to sell them to foreigners. And so the pool of buyers is much lower. The bottom line is 80% of condos are owned by Thai people. This is Thailand after all, right?
Yeah.
So if you're the pool of buyers is lower. But it's not just foreigners that have problem turning over secondhand condos. It's also Thai people.
Why is that? We've discussed this briefly on previous shows, but Thais don't buy secondhand.
Well, I've got a list. Like this is again, I've gone deep on this, so I'm going to run through just like a whole bunch of different different factors that are into play. Okay. So one factor is the esteem that Asians and Thais hold, or the esteem they have for owning and holding property. It's from a pure market capitalist, rational self-interest thing. It doesn't make sense. So from a pure rational self-interest standpoint, property is just another commodity. It's just another thing that you own. So it has a certain market value, and you can buy and sell it like a car. You can buy and sell it like anything else. And there's nothing particularly special about land in capitalism. But in Thai culture, just owning property is a high status thing. And it seems to have status independent of its economic value. And so there's cultural aspects of face saving, where if I'm a Thai person and I buy a condo for $8 million, then I'm never going to sell for less than that, even though I should. Even if the market value drops,
right?
They will just hold on to it. A free market person is going to say, well, people can't always hold on to stuff because they might need the money, or there might be like a distressed sale.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it turns out that because of the way the Thai economy works, a lot of Thai condo owners are above middle class, and so their condos are assets that they can afford to hold on for a long time. It's not true of everyone, but the bottom line is, we've talked before about how, rich Thai people, they just buy property here, buy property there. They never develop it. And it's like they're not concerned about getting into revenue from it.
Right. I've got two observations on that. Years ago, before I lived in the place that we live in now, I lived in Ari. We lived in the Noble Reflex building in Ari, which was a great neighborhood. And we moved in when it was a fairly new building. And I would say for the first 8 months, 6-8 months, maybe even the full year, like we hardly saw anyone else at the building.
Right.
The pool was always empty. The gym was always empty. I had a couple people in and out here and there, but we never got to know anyone, never talked to anyone. And it was really, really bizarre.
Yep.
And I was talking to someone about it later, and they said, oh yeah, all those units are sold out years ago, but they're just being held to flip at a later date. Right.
Right. Well, here's the thing. No, but the flipping part is actually wrong, or at least in theory, they want to flip it. But because they can't actually sell it, they never end up flipping it. That's the problem. Like as a rational capitalist, like you basically, that money that you have in the condo, since you're not renting it, since they're empty, that's dead money. So you could be doing something else with that money. If you put money in the American stock market, you're going to make 3% a year, almost for sure, and maybe 10% a year, over the long term. And so there's no reason to just leave a condo empty. It's a
waste of money.
Yeah, it's a waste of money. But
waste of potential.
For cultural reasons, Thai people just don't think of it that way. They win. Because they don't look at it. It's not an economic asset. It's a cultural asset. Oh, I own a condo here, and they don't even pay attention to it for 5 years. So that's one of the factors. That's one of the factors. Another thing to remember is that property taxes in Thailand are quite low, and often condo maintenance fees are also low. So to actually hold on to it and do nothing, it doesn't cost you much. Whereas in most other countries, in Europe, in Canada, in the US, and Australia, real property or condos, they're a bit of a hot potato because you have to pay property taxes, you have to pay condo fees. And so you can't, like, you don't want to leave your condo empty. That's just burning because you have to pay taxes and fees. So, in my political economy class, like I tell my students, like, in the West, property is a hot potato. Like, if it's not earning money, you got to get rid of it. But in Thailand, that's not the case. Under Thai law, property it costs you very little to hold on to it. So that's why there's no incentive to earn money from it. And that allows the cultural. So that means the economic factors don't take over. And instead, the cultural factors are driving what's going on.
That's why there's so many dead lots and open lots and empty lots in Bangkok, because there's no incentive to develop them.
That's right. Another thing
I'll buy it and give it to my great-grandchildren when it's worth 10 times what it is now. That's
right. I think that's part of the cultural thing. And a lot of times when you say when it's worth 10 times more, the funny thing is it does appreciate on paper, but they give it to their kids and their kids never sell it. So, I mean, it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's the Schrodinger's problem because it never, so on paper, they're like, oh, my condo's worth 15 million, even though nothing's ever sold. A secondhand one like that is not sold in years. So it's like the actual, no one knows what the actual true market value is because they're never turned over.
I wonder if you could take that deed then to the bank as collateral and get a loan or something against it for something that you never intend to sell anyway.
I mean, it's a good question. Here's something I did not know. Here's something I did not know about. When I was going through AI, it mentioned that another factor is kind of an information asymmetry in Thailand. Apparently, in the States and in Canada, and it says in the UK, there's a publicly available registry of actual sales, as in it's published. And I know my sister's in the real estate business, and I've talked to her about this. So I was vaguely aware of this. So you can go online and you can see how much someone paid for a house, like right next to you. It's public information. Not the listing. Not the listing, but the actual amount that is sold for. And so it's called, this is called a multiple listing service. And so the actual sale prices. But Thailand does not have a service like that. And so no one knows what these things are actually being sold for. And this is why people can list prices very high, and you don't know if that actually makes sense or not. So didn't you tell me you were looking at some other units in your building?
Yeah, in my building, it's ridiculous. Now, I live in sort of the sort of the mid-size units in my building, which are nice. But I've sort of long dreamed of moving into one of the big units in my building, which are like 180 square meters. Right, for me, that's massive. But for as long as I've known, we've been in our building for about 14 years now. Hard to believe. But as long as I've known, they've been about the same price. Like there's one I was looking at that was 12 million baht, which is crazy.
And it doesn't come down. What you're saying is it doesn't come down.
It's been 12 million baht for 14 years. It's
right. That's okay.
I mean, maybe a few changes, but not much.
Well, that proves the point exactly. Like
it's crazy.
And the funny thing is, if let's suppose that person got into financial stress and they had to accept 8 million, the bottom line is that would not be public information. So like in the States, that would be public information and it would help to pull down the other prices.
Right. Okay,
one went. So it would make it hard for someone else to list theirs for 12 million if the one next door went for 8.
Right. Because you could just look that up and go,
right.
And then come back at them with a counter offer or something.
Right. So when there are distressed sales in Thailand, it doesn't become public information. So the market doesn't get adjusted. And then we mentioned this already, but the interesting thing about the cultural emphasis on buying new, that has ripple effects. So essentially what that means is that there's always a premium on building new buildings, so it's almost independent of supply, because the builders know that, like the new generation of Thai people, they're not going to want to buy a secondhand one anyway. So even though there's this oversupply of old ones, there's always going to be like the 25-year-old Thai who can finally afford to buy a condo, and they're definitely going to want to buy in a new building.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so that means they keep building new ones, and that means the oversupply never gets corrected, and that's why you get this, why it's voodoo, like, you know, why you have all these empty condos, all these high prices, and the prices never come down, and then the building never stops. So you know to have the prices, you know, so the market never corrects for itself, and the knock-on effect of that is it's often very cheap to rent in Bangkok. So I've noticed this for years. It's like the building I live in is 5. I have my own house that's 5 floors. I pay 20,000 baht. It's crazy. Like, what? I mean, I don't need it. I don't need it. I should not be living where. But I have my own Chinese shop house. It should be 45,000 baht. It's 20. And granted, I'm only a renter, but in general. And AI confirmed that Bangkok is kind of a renter's paradise. And that's, you know, if you're a foreigner, obviously all of us are in different situations, you have a choice between buying or renting. And most of the videos are saying, like, you better think seriously about this. And the theme is, for most people, it's actually a much better deal to rent. And what happens in that case is then if rental prices are low, then that makes it even harder for you to sell secondhand. You know, it's like because you're looking for so you're a foreigner, you almost always have to sell to a foreigner. You of course would not to lower the price or lose money on it. You might be willing to do that, you know, because you might be more economically rational. But the bottom line is, you probably don't want to sell it for half of what you bought it for. But the bottom line is, that's what you might have to do given the rental prices that other foreigners can get. Renting is just such a good deal in Bangkok.
It's like a circular firing squad, or a self-fulfilling prophecy, or whatever you want to call it. It just one unknown drives the other unknowns, and it just circles back on itself. I feel a little bit bad when people say, like, oh, anyone who buys in Bangkok is an idiot, because of course I bought in Bangkok. Well, my wife did, or we did. And there's all these formulas out there, like, it should be like, take your salary and X times this and plus this, and you should never pay more for this. And yeah, it probably would be easier and cheaper to rent for us. But my idea, and maybe I'm just not sophisticated enough to really understand the property market, or maybe it's a little bit pie in the sky, or, you know, ruby glasses, rose tinted glasses. But like, basically I just want to buy it and pay it off, so that when I retire, knock on wood, if I'm ever able to retire, I can just kind of not worry about paying rent or mortgage anymore, and I can just worry about buying food for the week, kind of thing. That's what I'm working towards. So I don't have a grand plan to like flip it or fix it up or rent it out or anything like that. I just kind of want to own a thing that I can control and eventually pay off, and it's mine, and I can do with it what I want. So
sure. Well, I
wonder if that's a naive way to look at things.
No, it's not. I was going to get to it. You jumped the gun. I was going to get to the cases where buying might make more sense. So I think
Okay.
But your point is valid. A lot of it depends on why you want to buy and what your goal is. And if your goal is just the stability of actually owning a place, which is true, the older you get, the less you want to move, the less you want to pack things up and move, and the more you just want security and stability. And of course, you would like the value to appreciate. You'd like to know that you'd like to know that you could sell it at a profit. The bottom line is, at some point you might want to get a beach house or move into a smaller place or whatever it is. So you would like it to appreciate in value. But if you're primarily getting something as a home long term, then the lack of appreciation or the difficulty to sell secondhand, it doesn't matter to you as much. It's just, the question is, are you thinking of it as an investment and a place to live? That's where the problem comes into play.
I see. Okay.
So you might say, okay, the secondhand market sucks. Well, why don't I just buy a new condo? Like, maybe is that a good idea? Like, I might not be able to turn it over, but they're building new cool condos all the time. The new condos always have infinity pools and gyms, and they look really
Right.
sweet. They look really sweet. But a lot of the videos say that the new condos are also a risk because often the builder takes care of the building up until the point that it is sold, that the units go on sale, and then it gets handed over to a management company or like a juristic committee, and then within 5 years the building is shit.
Oh, that's interesting. And this is something that has always bothered me about Bangkok's skyline, is because there's so many condos out there, and once they're built, they look nice, but they don't really do a lot of consistent upgrades and
they're not maintained.
Maintenance over the years. Yeah. Now, that's one reason I like my condo, is that it is. Now, the trade-off is that every once in a while we'll get a bill from the condo for 20,000 baht or something for some fee or something, and we're like, what is this for? It's for a new paint. Oh, well, okay, I guess that's worth it. But it's hard to find condos like that because most of them are just build it and then they forget about it.
Now, I watched many videos, and I'm not even going to include links because you can easily just search YouTube. There's a lot of videos out there, but a lot of guys have just good advice. Like so they basically say, if you do find a good deal in a pre-existing building, not a new construction, then you want to find out, like, do they take care of the building? Like, walk around and check all the elevators, see if the elevators are working. Talk to current owners about the maintenance fees. So there's a lot of really good advice on what to do. And, as always, there's always exceptions. So there are some people who make money. If you do your research and you buy a condo in the exact right place, you might be able to flip it. There obviously are very popular areas. So if you time things right, if you time things on maybe a new MRT or BTS station, none of this stuff is absolute. It's possible to make money. It's just most of the advice out there is saying that just be careful and heavily consider renting first. But I wanted to maybe wrap up and talk about when, in the cases when buying might be a better idea. So okay. you mentioned one that, like, the question is, if you're basically buying it to live in it, then it's you don't see it primarily as kind of an investment, right?
Right. That's my case. Yeah.
Yeah. The second thing is kind of it's related. It's that if you are in the right place, if you're happy with the location, if you're near whatever you need to be near, like a mall or a hospital or whatever, and you're older, then I think you just don't need the flexibility of renting. The cool thing when you're in your 30s is like, oh, I can check out that neighborhood, I can check out this neighborhood, or if there's a lot of construction next door, I can just move next year. But once you find a place here, like, you like the area that you live in, like, it's pretty cool. So once you have that anchor, then that creates your stability. And as you said, eventually you are going to pay the whole thing off. And even if your eventual sale price not be what you thought it was going to be, you don't have to sell it, and you could stay there and live there forever.
Right. And that's totally fine with me.
You're right. Exactly. Another thing to remember is trying to evaluate prices is weird. People who bitch about the prices being too high here, they are looking at the oversupply. But a lot of buyers, some guys who are defending their decision to buy, they say, hey, look, I come from London and I'm getting a much better deal here. Like, the thing what I'm paying 10 million baht for in Bangkok would cost me 30 million baht in London. So,
sure.
And because a lot of expats, we do have a global perspective. This is what drives me crazy sometimes when tourists come and they're willing to pay the taxi driver 300 baht because they're like, hey, that's a deal where I come from.
Yeah. You're like, but that's not the point.
Yeah. But it does make sense. So for some expats, they don't really care that, oh shit, the price should be lower, because they already look at the prices as great deals anyway. If you're from Oslo, if you're from Tokyo, if you're from Berlin, Bangkok prices are going to look amazing.
But that injects, I don't know, there's probably a real term for it, but that injects sort of like a falsity into the market. It disrupts things, and it.
Correct. But I mean, this is this is, I mean, so our audience is made up of tourists and expats. And so this is, you're allowed to value things however you want to, so like all of us would love the prices to go down. I mean, actually, as an owner, you don't want the prices to go down. Or no, actually, you're thinking of maybe expanding or buying another one. So I guess it affects all of us. But again, it just all depends on what your frame, like what your point of comparison is.
Right.
And then the other point is, and AI did a good job of this, like showing me on a map. They basically were saying that a lot of the like sticky prices, that like the higher priced, like the condos where it just won't come down, these are really in prime areas. Like if you're like you're close to a BTS stop, you're on the river. If you're on Sukhumvit, like, so a lot of the sticky prices are in the high demand areas. And they were pointing out that if you're just willing to go 30 minutes away, they were saying there is more of a market pricing. The prices do come down, and
okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So you kind of have to get out of, I mean, we've talked about this. If you're willing to get out of the bubble of Sukhumvit or Siloam, or right next to a BTS station, they're saying that the prices actually are actually more reasonable. So if you want to do that, if you don't care about that,
well, that makes sense. And then you start to get into the realm of the guys that we were talking about before we started recording, or in the bonus show, actually, the sort of people that get off the grid and a bit further out and away from where the major developments are.
Yeah, I talked about it on the bonus show, these guys who actually live on farms. That's another topic. But yeah, the land,
right.
Like these guys are living in the boonies, and the land is crazy cheap. Like it's just
right.
So they have like 10 acres, and it's pretty cheap. But and then there's the other things we have to throw in is, like, as a buyer, sometimes you want to do major renovations, and so as a renter you usually can't do major renovations, but as a buyer you can. Oftentimes as a renter, there might be restrictions on things like pets. So if you're like a dog person, you might be like, it might be better for you to be a buyer.
Interesting though, because we live in a condo, and our condo is a no pet condo. So
I guess a good point.
We own the condo. We still can't have pets here.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I guess it depends on the type of building.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if you go down this black hole as I did, there's a lot of debate and discussion. Like a lot of people are just extremely frustrated at the prices of condos in Bangkok in light of the oversupply. So there's tons of videos of guys raging at, like, why don't these damn prices come down? And then there's also people who bought 5 years ago who want to sell, but they can't. They can't find buyers. Yeah. They can't find buyers. And what they're realizing is they would have to, like, significantly lower the price, which is what they should do rationally, but it's still hard to do.
Right. And then you also have a bunch of new condos that are still being built.
That's right.
You have a bunch of young Thais and probably a lot of expats too, who are still looking to buy new. So
that's right. And then you have people who can rent. So, and like, there's tons of places to rent. So it's pretty hard to find, you have to find the unique expat who needs to own, or maybe has not listened to the show and thinks owning, he thinks his condo is going to double in value in 3 years. So you got to find a sucker. If you find a sucker, then you're in good shape.
There's one other thing just quickly to mention before we go, and I don't really have an answer or an insight or anything, but for instance, near where I live, they're building the new Ministry of Interior headquarters, like a gigantic government building.
Right.
And just across the street from that, which is just up the street from me, they've built a huge new condo across from it. And it's almost like, well, we're building this gigantic new structure, so therefore we're going to need housing for all of the people that are going to work here. And so they almost custom build this condo for that purpose. You know what I mean? So
interesting. New
developments in areas that are not condo related, like malls or government buildings or office buildings, they also drive the building of new condos because they know there's going to be a shitload of new people who are going to be looking for places to live.
And of course they're Thai, which means they want to live in a new place. So
exactly. Yeah. Well, interesting, man. Again, we are not experts in this. We fully admit that. But Ed, that was some good research you did there, and appreciate it.
We're just raising some interesting issues.
Yeah, I think of this as sort of like the part one of a series. And listeners, like I said, it's really hard to find someone who knows a lot about the industry but is not pushing a particular angle.
Yeah,
again, not that that's a bad.
I think we might need an economist, or we need someone neutral, maybe someone from a condo association, not in a particular condo, but I mean maybe like a citywide condo, association that can explain how the market works.
But even then, they're not going to say, "Oh yeah, condos, way too many of them, don't buy it," or something like that.
Right.
I was thinking of an economist, a real estate economist, or a real estate reporter, even someone from
maybe a reporter.
A place like the South China Morning Post in Hong Kong or something like that. They've got a Thai real estate expert or something they write.
Well, listeners, you got to tell us what you think. I mean, who is the right person? I mean, it might just be voodoo. I mean, maybe nobody can figure out this market.
Maybe it's the one part of Thailand, because we always make fun of Thai people saying like, "Oh, Farang can't understand the Thai way of doing things." Maybe this is just really one of those things that is just not understandable.
Could be. That could be true.
Funny. But listeners, if you have any recommendations of someone who might be willing to come on and talk about this, let us know.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, we're going to finish off with a little bit of a unique segment here that we haven't done before, and I'm just simply going to call it Guest Question, because we did get a question from someone who specifically wanted us to talk about it, and I didn't really know where else to talk about it on the main show. So we got an email from our pal Dale, and he heard us talking on a recent episode about marijuana laws and marijuana stores and things like that. And his email said, a thought occurred to me regarding cannabis shops. My American expat friends who live in Bangkok and Pattaya regularly patronize cannabis dispensaries, as do I when I'm hanging out with them. However, my Thai girlfriend of some years, she and her friends have no interest. They enjoy drinking, but frown on my use of cannabis. They find it odd. I'm wondering if this matches your observation and experiences. Is Thailand's cannabis industry mostly geared towards Farang or other visitors? I don't see any cannabis shops in Ratcheda neighborhood where my girlfriend lives, but as you know, along Sukhumvit, there's cannabis shop on every block. So, Ed, as a resident pothead, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think what he's saying is basically true or roughly true. I have some Thai friends who are well-educated. They're in their late 20s, and I had a funny conversation with them where they kept referring to weed as drugs. They were going like, "Yeah, I don't do drugs," and I'm like, "Okay, it's not a drug. It's not heroin, And they did have a sense that marijuana was much more serious than it really is. So I think there is I think the Thai middle class and above, for them, they're fairly conservative, and cannabis is weird to them. And so I think roughly what he's saying is accurate. But there are some big exceptions. One exception is there are Thai hippies out there, especially Thai musicians. I hang out with Thai musicians, and they're all potheads. So right. you have to find the Thai hippies. They do exist. And then there's also the Thai traditional medicine community, and they embrace it. I mean, we've talked about this before, where there are some, restaurants where you can get cannabis in a salad. So, sure, yeah. But I think that his point is largely correct, that among middle class Thais and above, they're not embracing cannabis. It's mostly foreigners or different Thai subcultures. So I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree too. And it's interesting. Sukhumvit chock-a-block with weed stores, but once you get out into the boonies, they're few and far between.
Fewer, yeah. You got to find some Thai musicians.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Dale. That's great.
All right. A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're BangkokPodcast.com on social media, BangkokPodcast.com on the web, or simply BangkokPodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages, unless, of course, you're an agent who sends endless pitch emails on behalf of a client.
That's right. Also listen to each episode on YouTube. Send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show. Find me on Blue Sky at BKK Greg. Thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week.
For sure.